Good morning, I'm Dave Kaufman. In for Elias, and legal experts say that the justice system is failing Canada's working poor, many of whom are unable to afford lawyers, end up pleading guilty or representing themselves in court. Whatever happened to the system that was supposed to ensure that nobody was too poor to afford a lawyer? Here to discuss, CTV legal analyst Ari Goldkind. Good morning, Ari.
Good morning, Dave.
I appreciate the time this morning. There's that famous line that only a fool would represent themselves and be their client or be their lawyer. I totally botched that line, but you know what I'm trying to say.
I sure do.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've probably told that to a lot of people who go, I don't know if I can afford you, Ari.
Well, it's true, and a lot of people can't afford me. And for those who can't, who get charged with crimes, legal aid for serious crimes does pay me, and I'm one of some number of lawyers in Canada who, because of the kind of work we love to do, and we like to do serious criminal cases, we take legal aid because most people charged with very serious crimes don't have two nickels to rub together. So that's one fact. In terms of the only place people should be representing themselves, that's small claims court. And you and I are old enough to remember the People's Court
Sure.
and Judge Wapner.
Of course.
That's where you shouldn't have a lawyer, in fact. But when we get into the domain that people here are really worried about, particularly family law, refugee immigration law, a little bit less. I don't think highly of that whole domain for a bunch of reasons. But particularly criminal law, where I specialize, the idea that we're decimating legal coverage for the poor and working poor in all sorts of ways across this country, yet spending billions and billions more on crown attorneys, judges, courthouses, and police officers. A lot of people, Dave, will hear me say that and say, screw the defense lawyers, screw the criminals, screw the accused people. And they do think that, Dave, until the day that they get a knock on their car window
Right.
or on their door by a police officer saying you're under arrest because somebody has accused you of something. And then they realize, oh, my God, it's happening to me. I'm working poor or poor, and I can't afford a lawyer. So if you're a person like me who simply thinks there should be a somewhat fair fight, this is a problem. If you're somebody who holds your nose up and goes, no, I don't really care, lock them up and throw away the key without a trial, then nothing I'm going to say is going to convince you.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty fair. It's I think anybody would feel like the working poor if they started to get consistent legal bills.
That's right. And, when you talk about the working poor, the area that the working poor really much more have a problem in our legal system is as follows: family. And the scourge of family law, and I say this with all due respect to family lawyers or whether they are offended by this, in family law, there's a really bad incentivization problem. So for all of your listeners, Dave, who have gone through divorces, think through how a family lawyer makes money. If you and your spouse go to a family law lawyer and you're amicable and you simply want something to be drawn up on paper that reflects your agreement on child custody and splitting up your money, that's not a big legal bill you're getting, right? The family lawyer may have an hour or two of work to do. There's programs online you can download, fill in the blanks. But from a family law point of view, where you make the money is where the couple hates each other. And that's something that's a real problem in our system that we need to address at a much more structural level, that you're not reinventing the wheel every time you and your husband and you and your wife or whatever your domestic situation is are breaking up. I know people think they're really original and their problems are really unique to them.
Right.
And they're really, really special and
They
you won't
ain't.
believe what my husband did. But that is something that clogs up our system horribly. And then you have the refugee immigration problem, Dave. We're in a country that some say has open borders or very lax immigration and welcomes 340,000 people a year to a country where people are already struggling to make ends meet. Housing prices are crazy. Our federal government isn't stepping up to pay the bills for all these refugee and immigration claims, and that has a real effect down through the system, particularly provincially, where provinces are then forced to cut back their legal aid plans because the feds aren't contributing the cost of Justin Trudeau's tweets.
We're gonna a lot for me to unpack in that last one, Ari.
It's an important one, and it has a real effect on your listeners and their wallets.
So immigration trickles down to there not being enough pro bono lawyers.
That's right. So if you let's just look at Ontario for a minute, okay?
Yeah.
So
But
you
this is
have
but hold on. This is secondary to family law cases that are just ad nauseum.
I wouldn't say secondary, but I think there's a structural problem with family law in the way it's conducted. I've always thought that since my second day of law school.
Is that where, and if I may, is that where mediation comes in as a tool that helps sort of alleviate?
That's right. And mediation, arbitration that we use for more civil cases, you've heard those terms for contracts. Those are often helpful. But again, when you think through how lawyers make money, and I'm not knocking it, I want to make money. I want family lawyers to make money. I want everybody to make money, Dave. But when you think through the incentivization of how you make money with a couple splitting up or separating or custody, you don't make money by having somebody come in for an hour to your office. You make money from the War of the Roses. Again, we're old enough to remember that.
Yes, right.
We're old enough to remember that movie. Your millennials are like, what's he talking about?
I'm catching all your references today, Ari.
That's right. But again, who knows how old people are, but I'm 45, so you're stuck with a 45-year-old's references.
That's right.
But you have a problem here, particularly in Ontario. And yesterday, and this was huge news, Ontario has a massive justice bill that just came into play yesterday, and huge, huge, huge cuts to legal aid. Now, people go bananas about this against the Ford government because Doug Ford is his own unique, interesting creature. Mm-hmm. But Ontario is picking up the slack from Justin Trudeau, and this is the argument people make. So don't get mad at me.
I'm not. I was just looking for clarification.
No. I'm not saying you'll get mad at me.
Okay.
People think this is a third rail subject.
Right.
But when you have a country where people can come up through the border from the States through Roxham Road in your province, and Justin Trudeau says, we're open, anybody can come here, we don't turn anybody away, which is factually true if you understand our asylum, our refugee rates, nobody gets turned away. These people need lawyers when they go through things. They often don't speak English. When the federal government doesn't contribute to the provinces who pay these legal aid bills, you end up, and this is back to the beginning of our story, with the working poor who are already here, Canadian citizens, permanent residents. They then have their access to justice shut down because somebody has to pay the bill for all these claimants, paralegals, refugee, immigration claims, and it's the provinces without the requisite funding from the Justin Trudeau Liberals, who you'll recall, if you dare say anything about immigration, you'll get called a name.
Well, I'm looking at the clock and I'm seeing that I have 21 seconds for this, and I know that it's going to take us 21 minutes to get to where I want it to go, Ari. But wasn't Trudeau's comment that our borders are open a direct response to the U.S. closing theirs?
Yes, 100%. And look, Trudeau won in the landslide, so clearly the electorate says our borders should essentially
but hold on,
be open.
let me just quickly try and get to where I want to get with that.
Yeah.
Hasn't this been a problem for a lot longer than when Justin Trudeau made that comment?
In 21 seconds, yes, absolutely, and all of our federal parties have something to do with this. The problem is it gets borne on the backs of the Canadian poor and Canadian working poor.
And what would happen to our country, our economy, if we were to cease immigration and close our borders?
That is a much longer conversation that I'll have with you any day and any time, but we can't do in 21 seconds.
I'm in for Elias 3 of the next 4 weeks. Can we do this again over the holidays?
Anytime you want.
Ari, thanks so much for your time.
Pleasure, my friend.
That's CTV lawyer and defense lawyer Ari Goldkind.